Here is a blank canvas and we're going to start acrylic pour. Now, first of all I'll show you the canvas. Because the paint will be dripping off the edges, we don't want the canvas to stick to the plastic underneath, so I've stuck on giant mat pins. I found these online. There are a lot of videos on the internet showing you how to do this, but none of them tell you that your canvas has to be level. So make sure it's level with a spirit level on both axes, both sides, because if it's slightly tilted you'll get a beautiful pattern and you'll leave it to dry and it'll slowly slide itself to one corner and spoil your design. This wasn't level. I'll show you what I've done. I don't know if you can see that, but I've with sellotaped 3 2p there and 2 2p there. Coins are really useful for getting things level. Now the next thing is to mix the paint. A lot of people say you need Floetrol, but a much cheaper way is PVA glue. There are many different makes of PVA glue, and then I've got my paints. I've got quite flashy ones. Different paints will behave in different ways. A lot of the videos on mixing paints weigh precisely the amount of paint, the amount of glue and the amount of water, but that will only work for you if you have exactly the same kind of paint, exactly the same kind of glue, not just that it's PVA but it's the same manufacturer of that glue, and that isn't guaranteed. So I'm going to give you a much simpler and more straightforward way of mixing paints. Now, how much paint to mix? This canvas I measured, and it is 64 by 50 centimetres, or 2 foot by 1 foot 6 in old measurement, and that's including the sides because I like the paint to be on the sides as well as the top. Well, that will need ½ litre of pouring paint. Now I would mix a bit more, that's exactly right. It's always better to have a bit of paint left over than it is to run out in the middle. So as I said, 2 parts glue, 1 part paint, and then we add water, but very slowly and carefully. I'll show you that later. So one of these cups is 0.15 of a litre. 2 of these is 0.3 of a litre. 3 of these, or rather 4 of these, would be 0.6 of a litre. So if I fill up 4 of those, I've got over ½ a litre. If we make 5, we've got plenty. That's my simple thing, my simple system. I'm just going to judge this by eye. It's not an exact science. Don't have to get too... This is really gloopy, this glue. Really thick. So that's my glue. Now let's choose some colours. Anyway, this is a blue. So, nice lot of that. Also, another reason for not measuring too accurately with your weight is, even if you're using the same paints, you don't know how long they've been sitting on the shop shelf, or how long the person who's demonstrating online has had their paints waiting, and maybe they've gone a bit more viscous. Right, I'm going to stir them up now. 1 stick for each pot. See, I'm not furiously stirring, I just try not to fold too much air in there, but just get the glue and the paint completely homogeneous. One thing I recommend is using plastic cups that are see-through, because then you can see, I can see down the bottom and on the side somewhere that I've still got some white glue sticking, so it isn't completely mixed. Now that mixing process was getting a bit messy, so I've put rubber gloves on so that I don't get too covered. And also those pots were quite full, so I've doubled up on each pot and put some out into a spare pot. Now adding water, as I showed you before, this is very, very gloopy. It won't even drop off the stick. But we're going to add water very slowly, because if you go too far, then you've got to put loads more paint and loads more glue in, and you'll have more than you possibly could ever want. And I can sort of see in there when it's lumpy and it's not even where it's mixing, as I'm bringing bits from the bottom up to the top with the stick, and now it's smooth and it's dripping a bit easier, and it's making little piles in the paint, but they're dissolving a little bit too slow. Right, let's show you. You see how that's dropping? It's quite slow and it's staying on the surface. I'm going to put a little bit more water in. We've got to be very, very mean with the water now. You have to have the paint at exactly the right consistency. Too loose and it'll all mix together. Too thick and it won't flow nicely together over the canvas and create the amazing patterns that we're hoping to get. I don't know if you can see there, it's making little piles, but they disappear fairly quickly into the mix. Right, here are my mixed paints, but there's one more thing I need, and that's some silicone, a little tiny bit. Where am I going to get silicone? Well, WD-40 is one way. You can buy anti-frizz hair stuff which has got silicone in it, but I don't want to trust squirting it from the tin. That's a bit uncontrolled. Well, I just need a few drops in each pot. So what I'm going to do, I've got a little puddle of WD-40 in there, and I'm just going to one, two, one, two. So those are the magic ingredients. Acrylic paint, 1 part, PVA glue, 2 parts, and a few drops of silicone to taste. Now, I'm going to do 2 kinds of pour on one canvas. I'm going to do a flip cup. I'm not going to pour from these, I'm going to pour from these big ones. So here's the big one there, and I think for one pour I'm going to use the lighter blue and the purple because they're a nice contrast, and for the other pour I'm going to use mixtures of the nice rich blue, the green and the yellow. So the first one to go in is the last one that will come out. So maybe I'll put some, yeah, that's a nice consistency. So I'm going to pour some blue in, down the bottom there. Don't worry if it drips on your canvas. That's all part of the adventure. Bit of green going in there, and you see I'm pouring it in carefully, and they're not mixing. There's a nice line between the green and the blue there. A bit of yellow. Just pouring it down the side so it doesn't mix. They're sitting in layers. And we'll go through that process again with some more blue. Now, because I don't want to interrupt the flow, haha, I'll just show you this. This came from a cheapo shop. It's a sort of sink drainer thing. You put it in your sink and it stops all the food going down the plug hole. Well, it's going to work some magic today, I can tell you. Right, so here's my paint, here's my canvas. Put my paint in the middle of my canvas and flip it over like that. I'll just let it think about itself for a minute, just let it settle. You can see the lovely bands in there, can't you? The bands of colour, look at those. Gorgeous, aren't they? Do you think that's long enough? Let's see. Turn it a bit to loosen any stickiness. And then we lift. We've got some mixing there. It's a good gloopy lump of paint. And we're going to roll it onto the canvas, and as we roll it, any patterns, any swirls, any squiggles and squodges in there will get bigger. Okay, it's slowed right down now, so it's time to stick this on in the middle, just like that. And this time I'm going to pour straight from these little pots, one after the other. So I'll put a bit of blue in. No, well, let's put purple in first. Purple can be the advanced guard, and I'm pouring right into the middle. Bit by bit. And whilst I'm waiting for that to spread out, I'm going to get another one of my stirring sticks. And let's see what happens when we start rolling the paint. To where we want it to be. I like this bit here, so I don't want to disturb that. There we are. And this is beginning to happen. I think we can put some more in now from the other pots. So the last thing I put in was blue, so I'll put some more purple. This is why you need gloves. I'm just going to persuade what's coming out of the sink drainer to move out a bit, just by spinning round, looping it. You see the interesting patterns we're getting. There we are. I'm going to pick up some of the stuff that's fallen on the ground and use it to cover the sides of the canvas. Big gloop of paint there, let's pick that up. Put it along here, you can even use your finger, like that. Right, maybe some more tipping to help the old sink drainer along. There goes my pennies. Just maybe pour some mix around here. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Put that out of the way. And now we can... Oh, look at that. That's moving now, isn't it? Pushing the paint every which way. Now I'm just playing around. So you never know what you're going to end up doing, what's going to end up happening. Created a monster, some kind of giant amoeba. I shall move the camera off the tripod and take you round to have a look. There we are. Isn't that fun? All sorts of wonderful things happening on that canvas. There's one last little thing I want to show you. The gloves are off now, to coin a phrase. And for this, I'm going to use my little blowtorch, miniature blowtorch. You can use a larger blowtorch if you're very careful, or a hairdryer, or one of those, one of those heat guns, but you've got to be very careful. Heat guns are designed to burn paint off things, so you have to pass over it very quickly. But what this is doing is, if you've got any air bubbles left in there, the heat will pop them. The other thing you can do, if you don't have a heat gun and you see any little bubbles forming, you can go around with a cocktail stick and pop them like that. There we are. There's little bubbles coming up there. Very nice.